The Jets beat writer for the New York Post is Brian Costello, and he is on top of everything, and I hope you're going to hear it right now. Hello, Brian. How you doing?
I'm good, John. How are you?
Very good. Very good. I think the Yankee game is going to begin again. I think it stopped raining. And we know that the Jets will be playing tomorrow. And I talked about the hype. And do we believe the hype? You have to admit, Brian, that the stories on the Jets and Giants are a little better for teams that haven't gone anywhere in all these years. Give us some thoughts about the Jets.
Yeah, I think there's, tempered excitement, I'd say, John. I've been cautiously optimistic. I think the Jets fans are excited about Aaron Glenn. He obviously was a hot coaching candidate. He interviewed with almost everyone who had an opening, and he's homegrown, so to speak, right? He's a 1994 first-round draft pick of the Jets, played here for a long time, was a good player for a long time for the Jets. So I think that's exciting. He's not just, another coordinator coming here as a head coach. So I think people are excited about that, and I think, there's the expectations are not as high as they were the last 2 years with Aaron Rodgers here, but I think that could be a good thing, and I think Jets fans are kind of enjoying that they're a little more flying under the radar than these last couple of years. There's been no hard knocks. There hasn't been a lot of chatter about the Jets nationally. They've just kind of gone about their business. So I think fans are excited about what could happen this year without having, I don't think they have unrealistic expectations about the team.
Well, I don't blame fans, because I'm certainly one of them, of being optimistic before the season begins. That's about Aaron Rodgers. Tell us some of the thoughts about covering him. I thought one of the funniest things was, I think you'll remember this, Brian, when Rodgers said, look, the Jets have to stop listening to the outside noise. But Brian, the outside noise was Rodgers.
Yes. Yeah, well, he's quite an enigma, John, I would say. I enjoyed covering him because he was interesting, and that's all you want as a reporter, is you want interesting, and he was that. He gave us a lot to write about, and he was very gracious with his time, and he answered questions thoughtfully. He did not speak in cliches, which I appreciated, but there was a lot that came with Aaron Rodgers, and he was unlike any player I've covered. Actually, the closest, John, I would say, is back when I was backing up George King at the Yankees when the other A-Rod was playing, right? And it always seemed like Alex was in the middle of some sort of controversy or another, right? And it's similar with this A-Rod. And whether it was that he went to Egypt instead of going to minicamp, or that he was rumored to be a vice presidential candidate with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., there was always kind of something swirling around Aaron Rodgers. But overall, I enjoyed the experience. I had a lot of fun covering him.
Well, I guess the question is, it's a very tough one to answer. But what do you expect from Rodgers? He'll be starting at quarterback tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure what to expect from Rodgers. I don't know if anyone really knows.
Me either.
He just signed with he's signed with the Steelers in June. So he hasn't had a whole off season with them. He's another year removed from his Achilles injury, so he should be healthier and able to move a little bit better than he was last year with the Jets. And I'm sure he's going to be motivated, John. He did not like the way things went down with the Jets this offseason, where Aaron Glenn kind of brought him here from California and spends about 15 minutes telling him to get out, and didn't really, he felt, his words were, he didn't show ample respect. So I think he's going to be motivated for this game. I just don't know completely what to expect. He hasn't really played well, John, in opening games the last few years. If you go back last year, he didn't really play well against San Francisco, and then forget about the year he got hurt, but the 2 previous years in Green Bay, he had some bad openers. So he's kind of started slow as he's gotten older in his career. He didn't play in the preseason at all this year. So yeah, we haven't seen him. I think it could be a little slow go for him tomorrow. On the other hand, like I said, he's going to be motivated. So it wouldn't shock me either if he came out and had a good game. I'm not saying great game, but it wouldn't surprise me if he had some success tomorrow, just because he's going to have a big chip on his shoulder.
Well, you mentioned it. He has an enormous chip on his shoulder. I read something, and I felt the same way. I once did this in my career. Some team wanted me to fly and meet with the owners, and I had a good job, and so I did it and it worked out very well. I went to Philadelphia and I paid, and that's what got me. And Roger said, and I'm with him. He flew.
Yep.
From California to New York to go to this meeting with Aaron Glenn. And Darren, how do you pronounce his name? Muge?
Muji.
Yep. Well, anyway, had a meeting with the coach GM. He paid for the flight. He got there and they said, thank you. We don't want you here anymore. So one thing I would say, Brian, he is going to try, but the other team's going to try too. So we'll see what he does.
Yeah, I think, John, the interesting part is going to be what the Jets defense does against Aaron Rodgers. And I think we'll see how good this defense could be, because if the Jets are going to have any success this season, the formula is going to be play great defense and run the ball and pass when you need to. They're not going to be a prolific passing offense, so they're going to have good defense. And Rodgers really didn't like to get blitzed last year. He did not play well. If you go back to the Denver game last year, Minnesota game, they blitzed them, and it hurt them. So I would expect Aaron Glenn and the defense coordinator, Steve Wilkes, to throw a lot of defenders at him and blitz a lot and see if they can rattle him that way. And I think we're going to learn a little bit about the Jets' defense tomorrow and how good they can be.
Well, I think it's a good point. You know, when I know, Brian, you'll recall this, when Rodgers was having his great years with Green Bay, one of the great things he did when he was rushed would be to escape the pocket.
Yeah.
And on the run, he would throw these unbelievable passes in, as they say, tight windows. But even on the run, he could throw that. Well, last year he couldn't run.
Yeah, and, age is undefeated, right? Father Time's undefeated. And at 41 years old, he's not moving as well as he was when he was 31 or even 35. And we all can relate, those of us who are north of 40 years old, and what it starts feeling like. So, yeah, that was definitely an issue last year. I think his arm is as good as it's ever been. Like, I think he can, he flicks the ball with, it's just a flick of the wrist and the ball goes a mile. He can't elude the defenders like you're referencing and kind of just create more time. And I think he knows that. So I think he's trying to get rid of the ball quickly. That leads to, there's not much downfield. There's not a lot of downfield passing. Yeah, he's a different quarterback for sure now than he was even, 5 years ago when he was winning MVPs in Green Bay.
Well, I certainly agree with you. I figure the Jets are going to blitz him silly, and I figure that Pittsburgh will throw a lot of short passes. I'm guessing. And we'll see. Yeah.
And I'm curious how much they run. John, look, one of the Jets' Achilles heels last year was their run defense. They did not play run defense well, and people listening might remember the first game, right, against San Francisco on that Monday night. Christian McCaffrey is out. We learned about that right before the game, and everyone was like, oh, boy, the 49ers on McCaffrey. They had this guy Jordan Mason come out, and he ran all over the Jets. So we'll see. I mean, the Steelers might just try to run the ball a lot on the Jets and test out if their run defense is any better than it was last year.
Brian, let's go to the other quarterback, the first year for Justin Fields. I mentioned this on I forget to who, but one year he was starting for Chicago, and a broadcaster that I have great respect for said, Fields has not only great legs, he has a great arm. He can throw the ball down the field. Of course, that doesn't mean he'd be accurate. Give us some thoughts on Fields.
Yeah, he does have a strong arm, John. The question with Fields is sort of the processing, how quickly he processes. Sometimes he holds onto the ball too long, and that leads to sacks. He was sacked quite a bit in Chicago. And accuracy, you referenced. He had one practice they did a joint practice with the Giants a few weeks ago, and he was spraying the ball all over the field. He really did not have control. Other times he looked better, but his running ability is different. He's like a running back there. So I'm curious to see how the Jets utilize him in that area. That's not something you do in the preseason. You don't show that in the preseason. Right. You don't want to risk him getting hurt in the preseason. So, I know people were reacting, to all these preseason games, but they're not really running their offense. So it's hard to know exactly what to think of those. So I'm curious how much they have design runs for him, run pass option plays, that kind of thing. I think that could be the bread and butter of this offense if they get it going. And when he runs, it's pretty it's pretty remarkable to watch. And he had over 1,000 yards 1 year in Chicago. The Jets have never really had a quarterback like this. They had Michael Vick at the end of his career. They had Geno Smith early in his career who can run a little bit, but no one like this. He's a weapon back there as a runner. The question is going to be, what he can be as a passer, and we'll see. Has it worked? Didn't work, in Chicago, and then in Pittsburgh last year. It was pretty good through 6 games, but not good enough for them not to turn to Russell Wilson when he's healthy. So I think, the Fields question is going to be huge for this season, and can they figure out, can he be the guy going forward in 2026?
Well, I kind of agree with you. I think they'll run a lot of RPOs because you also, in the run pass option, you might be able to hit very short passes to someone who's off some wing. Yep. And, I'm talking like I know what I'm talking about, but that's about what I think that the Jets will do. I've heard, as you have, Brian, I'm older than you, so I've heard it longer than you. But here's what we're going to do. We're going to play great defense. We're going to run the ball. We're going to run the clock. We're going to keep the ball away, that kind of thing. But at some point when you're behind,
yes,
then you have to throw the ball. Yeah,
it sounds great. When you say it in August and you say, going into the season, it sounds great, but you're right. And if you've watched Jets games, they're behind a lot. There hasn't been many games where the Jets are ahead to start a game. Like, it's kind of been a theme for the last 10 years of the Jets struggling in the first quarter and being down and having to come back. And it's tough to do. It's tough to run the ball if you're down 14 points in the third quarter. Like, you've got to be able to have quick striking offense in the NFL. You can't rely on 11 and 12 play drives. You can't live like that. You can do that a few times, but if that's the only way you can score, you're going to be in trouble. So I'm curious to see what the big play ability is of this offense, because we haven't really seen it in training camp much. They don't have a tremendous deep threat. They have Arian Smith is a 4th-round pick out of Georgia who's got tremendous speed, but he's very raw, and he's a 4th-round pick. So I'm not sure how much the coaches trust him yet. But other than that, they don't have a lot of guys who can stretch the field. So it's going to be interesting to see where the big plays come from.
On the national scene, like me, you watch every game. I mean, it's your business. You have to. Were you slightly impressed with Dallas that they weren't blown away by Philadelphia?
I was. I thought they looked good. And I thought, Brian Schottenheimer is a guy who was the Jets offensive coordinator from 2006 to 2011. So I got to know him a little bit back then. And he was a hot coaching candidate at that time, John. He had some head coaching interviews in Buffalo and Jacksonville at the time. And then he sort of fell out of favor. And I didn't think he'd ever be a head coach. So it's interesting to see him get a chance. And I thought he had them ready to play. I thought they played really well against the teams that just won the trophy a few months ago. And I thought offensively they did a lot of good things. And, they just made a few mistakes. They made too many mistakes in the game. But I was impressed with Dallas. And, I thought Schottenheimer, who people questioned when the Cowboys hired him, I thought he had this team ready to play on Thursday night.
It's funny. I did a thing before you were on about the hype. And I guess I believe the hype because I thought that Dallas was really in trouble. Everyone hated the move that Jerry Jones made, and they were going to get killed, and they didn't. So, but of course, it's one game. I mean, that's. I'll ask.
Game. Yeah, I mean, look, they're a better team with Micah Parsons on it. There's no doubt about that. But it's one game, so we'll see over time how much they miss Micah Parsons. I think they will quite a bit. The Eagles are a more run-heavy team. We talked about the Jets. I think the Eagles are the model for the Jets, right? If you can run an offense like that, you can win a lot of games. So can Justin Fields be as good as just Jalen Hurts? Can Breece Hall be Saquon Barkley? Can that offensive line block like the Eagles' offensive line? That's a lot to ask. But, I don't think they missed Micah as much in that game because the Eagles are so run-heavy. It's going to be interesting when they play a team that sits back and wants to drop back and throw 40 passes in a game, what happens in that kind of game.
Sounds like my kind of game. I love, in all sports, I love offense. And, I want to see my quarterback throw the ball 40 or 50 times a game. So, one final question, a very tough question, but I think people listening would love to hear your thoughts. Do the Jets and the Giants have any chance to make the playoffs this year?
I think slim. I mean, the Giants' schedule is brutal, John. Like they have a really tough schedule, so I can't see that for them. And the Jets have an easier schedule. I just think the AFC is tough. I think the AFC, if you're looking at it, you're kind of expecting two teams to come out of the West, right? You're expecting two teams to come out of the North, and then you're trying to figure out where the other team comes from. So I just think the AFC is going to be tough, and I think the Jets. This is kind of a reset year with them, with Aaron Glenn. I think they'll be. I predicted 8-9 for them, so I think they'll win a fair share of games. And if they win 8 games, John, that's the most games the Jets have won since 2015.
Wow.
So that'd be a pretty good season. But I think they'll fall short of the playoffs. I just, like I said, I think the competition in the AFC. If you're going through the AFC West and the AFC North are no jokes, and there's going to be a lot of playoff teams from that. And then within their own division, the New England. That's probably going to be improved this year. I don't know what to expect really from Miami. I expect Buffalo to win the division. But Miami and New England are kind of questions. So I just think it's going to be tough for them. But look, what's fun about the NFL is, more in all sports really, but the NFL is pretty much wide open a lot of times for these teams to go for. Every year there's a team that comes out of nowhere and was bad the year before and is all of a sudden good. And, so maybe the Jets can do that one of these years, but I think they'll fall short.
I think that's pretty accurate because the AFC, it's cyclical. It happens in all sports, but there's no question the AFC is so much stronger than the NFC and so many terrific teams and terrific quarterbacks in the AFC. Brian, the season is just beginning. We have to do this again. You're a great guest, as I knew you would be. And thank you, and let's put it this way. We're going to call on you again.
All right. Thanks for having me, John. Anytime.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. That was Brian Costello of the New York Post, and you'll read him after Sunday's game, and he will tell you everything. He and his compatriot, Paul Schwartz, who writes the beat writer on the Giants for the Post, and they're both so great. I love reading them all the time.
Thanks for listening to The John Sterling Show. You can hear The John Sterling Show Saturdays at 4 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?